Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Jerry Rhoads. We're going to be discussing his amazing book, The American Enterprise Party, Volume 1, The Swing Vote to Drain the Swamp and Rein in Big Brother and the Brotherhood. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. But people, if you want to gather everything that Jerry has in store, do yourself the best favor you can do and go directly to his personal website. Okay, it's jerryroadsauthor.com. And just so there's no confusion, Rhoads is Rhoads. So once again, that's jerryroadsauthor.com. The reason why you want to go there to gather everything that he has in store is because this book, of course, The American Enterprise Party, Volume 1, this is the anchor for today's interview. But Jerry has put in some work, okay? And believe me when I tell you, he is the absolute embodiment of a person of distinction, because not only has he written this book, but he has 17 other titles that he's written as well. Hopefully, many more on the horizon. You got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, jerryroadsauthor.com to gather everything that he has in store. And before we go any further, I do want to take this opportunity and point out that Jerry was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by one of the best advertising firms in the business. You already know, I'm talking about Quipper Prints. So listen to me. If you're a writer out there, you have a book that you've written, and now you find yourself at a crossroads because you need help moving the book you just wrote. Well, let me give you some fantastic advice. Contact Quipper Prints. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and frankly, people, this is what they specialize in. Head on over to quipperprints.com today and gather all of the ways they're going to help maximize your creative endeavors. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure, okay, a true honor to have Jerry here on the line. As I mentioned to you before, he is the truest embodiment of a person of distinction. Now, why do I say that? It's not only because of the fact that Jerry has written 18 books and counting. That makes him pretty unique and distinct in his own right. But people, when you start to do research on his book, The American Enterprise Party, Volume 1, well, first and foremost, if there's a Volume 1, well, it's probably a safe bet that there's a Volume 2. Well, not only is there a Volume 2, but there's also a Volume 3. There is so much happening here. This book is layered. It is educational. It is informative. It has so much to do with our political system, but also our country as a whole. Now, Jerry is going to be here to educate all of us because this book, as I mentioned, is layered with so many things. Now, he's going to explore the swing vote party and their effect in the political arena, utilizing his experience in the industry to back his perspective. This man knows what he's talking about. So you're going to want to sit back, strap in, have your notebooks ready, and please understand that we're only going to scratch the surface here today. Okay, we are going to cover a lot, but it's a very small percentage in the totality of what is encompassed in his book. And by the time we've concluded, you're going to run to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, jerryroadsauthor.com and pick up your copies because you're going to want to fill in those gaps. And don't take my word for it. Take Jerry's. It's his book. He's written it. It's his experience. He's lived it. He's going to be able to articulate it much better than I ever could. Jerry, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today, sir?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing well.
It's a true pleasure, man, to have you here with us on the network. What you've embarked upon, I think, is profound for so many reasons, but very, very educational. Before we jump into the books, I know we have a lot of information to cover. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself. Jerry, tell us more about your background.
Well, I'm by profession, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm originally from Iowa. We were transplanted to Chicago, my wife and I and our small daughter, after I graduated from Simpson College. That's in Iowa. And my degree was in liberal arts and business administration. And I was recruited to Chicago by Arthur Anderson and Company, the largest accounting firm and consulting firm at that time in the world. Mm-hmm. And here I was, a hick from Iowa that never been to Chicago. So from 5,000 down to 5 million, it was quite a transition. But from that point on, I've been involved with government, healthcare, and having my own businesses. I'm an entrepreneur. I started 5 businesses. As you said, I've written numerous books mostly on healthcare and politics and the poor health of America in general and how we're going to have to deal with that in our healthcare system. But my experience has been mainly with the day-to-day business people, and have found that we're not pitting American capitalism against American socialism, because American capitalism are the shareholders and the American socialism are the human capital. And then they'll say, oh, well, humans aren't capital. Well, I hate to disagree, but that formula comes together every day in our small businesses and then medium businesses and then international businesses. And to a certain degree, we're kind of losing out on that international trade. And I'll go into that in more detail. Being an author is something I'm doing after I retired. So it's kind of a new profession for you.
Well, it never stops, right? I love that. And people, I told you, Jerry knows what he's talking about, okay? This is something that he has lived for a number of years. And this man knows money, right? His background's in CPA. He knows his money and he understands it from a government perspective. And this is what I love about your book, Jerry. It may be hard for certain people to swallow, but it is eye-opening, okay? And there is a lot of things that we cover here. Without further ado, let's jump right in. The American Enterprise Party, Volume 1, The Swing Vote to Drain the Swamp and Rein in Big Brother and the Brotherhood. Jerry, tell us a little bit more about your book.
Well, as I had indicated, I'd like to read the mission statement. It will only take a second here. And I'm talking about Americanism, the other ism that really kind of stands out over communism, fascism, all the other isms. But the mission statement of Americanism, in America, we now have 2 parties fighting each other and losing the American dream. The left and the right forego the middle American for one-party control. A third-party swing vote breaks ties and keeps money ticks, monetized politics, and partisan politics honest by pursuing consensus legislation and laws and regulations, by being the referee for bipartisan decision-making to avoid one-party control where monetary capitalists share and human socialists care. So free market enterprise is truly laissez-faire, the marriage made real by the American dream on humanism and American enterprise practicing laissez-faire. That's Americanism. So the book really defines a top-down problem. And it's because we have 2 parties that really are evolving into one party, the uniparty. And our founders did not put a 2-party system in the Constitution for that reason, because they were afraid that it would evolve into one party getting control and avoiding consensus bottom up from the voters. And so that's our situation at the present time, is we have a gridlock Congress, and to unlock that gridlock is going to take a tiebreaker. And at this point, the third party that I'm proposing, the American Enterprise Swing Vote Party, doesn't need to control. It just needs to be able to break the ties and move the legislation and the laws to the middle. We now then have a representation of the independent voters who claim that they like something about one party or the other, and they swing that way, but they don't have a platform plan or a positive result. So why is this imperative now? Well, first of all, it's the debt that has been they've set the ceiling, but they have 79 times moved the ceiling. And the ceiling now has been deferred until the next political election. So it could go to 50 trillion. And a trillion, if you non-accountants want to do the accounting, a trillion is 1,000 billions. And a billion is 1,000 million. Mm-hmm. And millions are 1,000 of those other dollars. So at that point, it becomes beyond the understanding of anybody that's outside of this monstrous government to realize that it's at a point where we're not going to economically, which means what's our total assets, be able to liquidate our total liabilities, not just today or tomorrow or this year, but over a period of years. And it goes slowly, and this is accumulated since World War II, when we won the war, but we incurred billions of dollars in debt. So the greatest president that, in my opinion, that we had was Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who managed this through building the war machine in 4 years and beating Hitler's that took 10 years to build, with Rosie the Riveter and all the hard work of the Americans, which was funded by, guess what? War bonds, 6% war bonds. So, in essence, we bailed ourselves out of billions of dollars of debt because Americans stepped up, including the billionaires and millionaires and whoever else was making their wealth off of America, the great American enterprise. It's not an institution. It's not a church, but we're treating it that way. We're actually saying cash in and cash out. That's our business. Well, that's cooking the books to the extent of the debt clock, which is in Washington, D.C., and also in New York City on the wall of the stock market. It's demonstrating the difference between government accounting, which is budgeting accounting, that adds in borrowing into the receipts to make it balance, versus generally accepted accounting principles, which forces you to report your results on a enterprise basis, to pay taxes and to have your stock sold on the market or your bonds. Generally accepted accounting principles is required by the SEC and all bankers and all accountants if you have a business. So why is the government not on that form of accounting?
Right.
Well, when you convert that, we currently have 32 trillion in debt, and then you add in what our obligations are, it rolls up to 184 trillion that are promises, which is Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, and 13 entitlement programs. So just to give you a little flavor, that is what the enterprise party is formed to do, is bail out this potential bankruptcy. And bankruptcies, I've been through a couple. I understand how you cut costs and get down to the break-even point, start over and make money, pay your bill. That's the greatest invention in America because no other country has that. It's called the bankruptcy laws. So you'll say, I'm told, oh, the government can't go bankrupt. Well, the government has gone bankrupt in the cities and states. The Constitution does not say you can't go bankrupt. It says you should not spend more than you make. That was a Thomas Jefferson addition to the Constitution. Yeah. Well, we have violated that, like I said, since the Second World War. So I've got a bottom-up solution to this top-down problem.
People, I'm telling you, this is impactful, okay? And a couple of things. A, it's absolutely alarming, a bit scary, but also, as I mentioned before, eye-opening. I mean, this is so educational. You got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, JerryRhoadsAuthor.com. We have just begun. We've barely scratched the surface, and I'm already at the edge of my seat hanging on to every word because this affects us. This affects your day-to-day lives and as well as our children, right? For my parents out there, I'm thinking, as Jerry is talking, all I can think about is, what is the world going to look like for my daughter, right? for my hopefully future children that I have. I mean, right now we only have one. We have a daughter, but my wife and I are planning on potentially having a second. And I can't help but think, what is the world going to be like for her? Because this is scary, but we can do something about it. And that's where I want to go next. Jerry, I know Volume 1, what we just talked about, addresses the problem. Well, as I mentioned to you before, people, there's a Volume 2, there's a Volume 3. Now, Volume 2 goes into the solution of that problem. Volume 3 addresses who is going to be the ones to really address that and put that solution into effect. Now, of course, the anchor was all about Volume 1, Jerry, so we don't want to go into too much detail, but please talk to us about the solution that you've come up with and who's going to be responsible for it.
The American enterprise, I call it a manifesto. And in the manifesto, if you define it, is a proposed reorganization to solve typically major social or economic or governmental problems. Well, this one encompasses all of those. So really in Volume 2, the manifesto is going to do a reorganization of our debt. The way that is done, and it's done in Chapter 7, 10, 11, and 13, and Governments are Chapter 10, is that they freeze everything at a certain point, and then a plan emerges from the debtor and has a creditor committee that approves that to start reorganizing the debt and raising capital. Well, the first step in my program is to raise the capital from the existing wealth that has been generated from the great American enterprise. And that's the billion, zillion millionaires that claim that they don't want to pay all the bills. Well, they don't. Actually, when you look at who pays all the bills, it's typically the I call them enterprising Americans, risk-taking enterprising Americans. They also pay property taxes, sales taxes. So there's a misconception here that the wealthy pay all of the governmental bills. They don't. And actually, the government, the size of it, is 24 million employees, and we're not quite sure what they do. They're in agencies. There's 12 agencies of the federal government. Then we have 12 agencies of the state government and 12 agencies of the county government. After a while, we have 2,500 agencies that we're funding with $2 trillion a year in payroll, including benefits, the best health care, and pensions forever, as long as these people live, and they don't turn over. The bureaucracy itself of 24 million employees are swing votes. They'll either swing with the party they think that's going to stay in, or they swing with the party they think is going to come in, and become permanent in their job. So there is no term limits on 24 million of our workers. So are we going to lay off half these workers? No. I think we need to find out what they're doing. And now there's another website that has a analysis of all of the expenditures at every level of government. It's amazing. It's called openthebooks.com. The problem is with this, it's transparency, but the money's already gone. But within that website and the U.S. debt clock, when you look at it, there are solutions to this that hits you in the face. Is that we have to know what these people do. We don't. The first responders, yeah, we know what they do. The police, the firemen, the teachers. During the pandemic, those were the ones that were shut down.
Yeah.
And the big boxes and the big government and Big Brother and the Brotherhood all got their paychecks and stimulus checks. So this is not what you would call free market, laissez-faire enterprise. It is money ticks to the greatest degree, and it's killing our competitive nature in the world, because the world's grown to a global trade war or trade supply line, and the supply lines principally are in Asia. And now Asia, and that's specifically China, is moving into Africa, has already made inroads into China or India, South America, Central America in terms of cartels, and they're part of the open border policy. They're coming in, streaming in. So we have to start going on offense. We have a Defense Department that's building weapons of mass destruction that we don't want to have to use. That's almost $1 trillion a year to fund the military and development of weapons.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be a boots on the ground, bomb each other war. I mean, Putin has us by the you know what, because we're afraid that he's going to drop the bomb on us. And China, they're employing us. And Russia sells oil to us. We're a customer, as Ukraine has been a supplier. So the supply line, we don't control anymore. And why is that a problem? Well, China now, smarter than we are, they took our technology and made it better, reverse engineer it, and selling it back to us. And this, so it's South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, India, Vietnam. I'm running out of words, Malaysia. You have, there's a consortium of suppliers there that have, by the you know what, particularly if they stop taking our paper, because the dollar bill is the reference currency for trade. And China, through the Export-Import Bank, has been distorting the exchange rate for a number of years towards them. But if we lose that position, and China is wanting to take the position of being the international or worldwide currency and the worldwide government. So that's what we're up against, is that we basically lost the trade war because China controls all shipping through the 100 ports around the country, our 20 ports, and they come from their 30 ports, Shanghai being the biggest, and they have built their own cargo ships. They've built their own containers. They have a 14,000-acre container field in Shanghai, color-coded and robotic, loading and unloading these huge cargo ships that now can get through the Suez Canal and the other canal, I forget what it is, because they've widened them to be able to handle these large cargo ships. A cargo ship, and there's the two largest of China's, is the Goliath, which has a capacity of 24,000 containers, and the Tessa, which can carry 18,000 containers. And around the world, they have some 370 million containers in process of being delivered on a two-way shipping program where they get paid shipping for bringing it here. They don't pay for getting it to the wholesalers and the retailers. We got to do that. They don't even pay for any marketing of their products. We do that. And they then want paid for us to ship the stuff that we do export back to the importer. So they have about a $2 trillion shipping monopoly, and it's run by the communist CCP, the communist Chinese Communist Party, which I call a monopsony. A monopsony in economics is a entity that handles supply and demand, and then shipping. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we're lost when it comes to being able to build on our products. We've shut down the energy department almost with a Green New Deal that's dead on arrival. And China says, well, we'll sign up for it, but we'll move in that direction. They and India and Mexico are some of the worst offenders. But in essence, America is in a point of no return. And this will only escalate because we keep inflating the derivative bubble. What is the derivative bubble? Well, that's not only the debt, it's our stock market. The stock market right now is going up during inflation and stagnation. Why is that? Because the government's spending. The spending's causing the inflation, and then we'll turn into stagnation. It'll get to the point where people just give up and stay home. like they did in Russia and like they did in Cuba, and eventually will happen in China. Is that top-down government instead of the bottom-up enterprising workers hasn't worked in history. So that's just kind of a sum up of volume 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Because 3 is going to have to be the human capital. The human capital has to be led. The leadership in this country has never been focused on global trade. Most people would like to see global trade go away. Well, it's gone away. It's over there. And if it's not going to come over here, we turn the tables on them and tell them we're not paying shipping. Sorry, you're going to have to get the supply here. You're going to have to pay for market space. Coca-Cola has to pay shelf space to get his product shown. So, no, this has got to. The tables have to be turned on them. We have to have people that understand how to do that, and we do have people in the country, but they're not attorneys. Our country's run by attorneys, lawmakers, and bankers, and economists, and those people that tell us what to do and what not to do. Well, we have enough talent in this country to replace them in a minute with people that do know what to do in the cabinet and in our legislatures with term limits on the bureaucrats. We have to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
We need to take back the country, and the consumer should be running global trade. Well, that's the essence of the American enterprise swing vote party.
Jerry, listen, man, there is so much here. I know myself, okay? I can sit here, I can talk to Jerry for hours, okay? I am that much engulfed in everything that he is saying, and it makes so much sense to me. These things are within our control. It comes down to the consumers. It comes down to us. Now, that's a lot of work. By no means is this going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take dedication. But this is something that we can do. It starts with us. It starts with books like this. The American Enterprise Party, Volume 1. The swing vote to drain the swamp and rein in Big Brother and the Brotherhood. Emphasis on that last line. Rein in Big Brother and the Brotherhood. People, we got to rein them in. And it's up to us in order to do that. There's so much happening here. There's so much information. We have barely scratched the surface, and that's what I love about this interview. Now it's up to you. You got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, JerryRhoadsAuthor.com. Pick up your copies. The education is second to none. You need to be informed. Pick up these books. Go a step further. Get these books to add to someone else's shelf so they can be informed as well. Once we start to raise the awareness, then we can really start to, as he said, put boots on the ground. Now, I know he meant it in some other, in a different reference, but this is what we want here. We need boots on the ground for our own benefit and for our future. That's what we have to do. And while you're at it, listen, I know we spent this entire time talking about the American Enterprise Party because that was what was most important. But again, remember, Jerry has a lot of other works that he's put out. Head on over, get lost in all of them because there is so much. There's really something for everyone. Not just educational and informative books. So many of them are, but he also has some artistic books as well. You're going to want to get involved in it, and you got to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, JerryRhoadsAuthor.com in order to do so. Jerry, this has been a true pleasure, man, an absolute delight. Thank you once again for being a guest with us on People of Distinction.
Well, thanks for having me. Enjoyed trying to sum this up. It's pretty difficult.